My parents stole my $50,000, 0 cents for a yacht getaway while I was paralyzed post-surgery, so I fought back and unraveled their darkest secrets. The phone ripped me from sleep at 3 a.m., its shrill ring slicing through the silence of my Boston condo. My heart was already pounding as I grabbed it, the screen glaring Dad in the dim light of my back bay bedroom. "Evelyn, it's your mom." His voice cracked, thick with panic. "She's been in a car accident in Miami. She's in critical condition at Jackson Memorial. You need to come now. She might not make it." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Mom. Critical. Dying. My hands shook as I stumbled out of bed, pulling on a sweater, my mind racing. I'm Evelyn Harper, 33, a corporate lawyer who thrives in the pressure of multi-million-dollar mergers, but this was a crisis I wasn't trained for. I booked a $5,000 0 cents red-eye flight to Miami, canceling a $10 million 0 cents merger presentation set for Monday. My boss, Catherine, would be livid, but family comes first, doesn't it? That's what I told myself as I emailed her from the Uber, my fingers trembling over the keys. "Family emergency," I typed, promising to work remotely. The driver glanced back, his eyes catching mine in the rearview mirror. "Everything okay?" he asked. I shook my head, unable to speak. I was terrified. The flight was a nightmare of turbulence and dread. Wedged in a window seat, I tried to review merger documents on my laptop, but my thoughts kept spiraling. Mom was only 60, healthy despite the stress of my father's failed ventures. A car accident. It didn't add up. Miami wasn't exactly a war zone. I pictured her in a hospital bed, tubes snaking from her arms. Her warm laugh silenced. Guilt clawed at me. I hadn't visited since Christmas, too busy closing deals and building my life 1,500 miles away. The plane jolted, and my coffee splashed across my tray table, soaking the documents. A fitting metaphor for the chaos swallowing me whole. Landing in Miami at 7:12 a.m., I was a wreck. No sleep, no food, just a gnawing fear I'd be too late. I grabbed my carry-on and hailed a rideshare to my parents' Spanish-style house in Coral Gables, the familiar palm-lined streets blurring past. The driver tried to chat about the Heat's latest game, but I barely heard him. Memories of my childhood flooded back. The corner cafe where I'd sneak mochas, the park where I'd push my brother Liam on the swings, back when I was the responsible one, cleaning up my parents' messes while Liam, 5 years younger, got a free pass. I shoved the thought aside. "Focus, Evelyn, Mom needs you." I fumbled with my old key at the front door, the scent of jasmine hitting me as I stepped inside. "Mom, Dad," I called, dropping my bag in the foyer. My voice echoed, answered by laughter? Not the hushed grief of a family in crisis, but bright, carefree chatter from the kitchen. I froze, confusion spiking through my exhaustion. Following the sound, I found a scene that didn't belong in my nightmare. Mom stood at the marble counter, perfectly fine, sorting a pile of beachwear. Dad, Victor, checked a yacht itinerary on his phone, muttering about departure times. My sister, Liam, lounged nearby, scrolling Instagram, a Louis Vuitton duffel stuffed with resort outfits at her feet. 3 matching luggage sets lined the patio door, screaming Caribbean extravagance. "Evelyn," Mom beamed as if I'd just dropped by for coffee. "You're here! Perfect timing." I stood there, my suitcase still in hand, the room tilting. "You're not hurt?" My voice was flat, disbelieving. Silence crashed over the kitchen. Mom glanced at Dad, who avoided my eyes. Liam smirked, not even looking up from his phone. "Well," Mom said, brushing her hands on her sundress, "I had a little fender bender last week, but I'm fine now." A fender bender. Not critical condition. Not a hospital bed. My blood ran cold. "Dad said you were dying," I said, turning to him, my voice rising. He cleared his throat, staring at his phone. "We needed you here, Evelyn. You're always so busy with that fancy job." The truth slammed into me like a tidal wave. They'd lied. My own family had fabricated a life-or-death crisis to drag me across the country. For what? I turned to Liam, his smirk replaced by a practiced pout. "We're going on a yacht trip to the Caribbean," he said, as if announcing a Nobel Prize. 10 days, all inclusive. But I've got a little situation that needs your expertise. His situation was a Ponzi scheme he'd been running, now unraveling with a Miami crime syndicate breathing down his neck. They needed me, the lawyer, to clean it up while they sailed off to sip rum under palm trees. I'd spent $5,000, 0 cents, risked my career, and thought Mom was dying. All for their convenience. Fury burned through me, hot and sharp, but I swallowed it. I smiled, tight-lipped, my mind racing. They thought they could manipulate me, like always. Growing up, I was the fixer, bailing Liam out of trouble, covering Dad's bad investments, soothing Mom's tears. At 17, I found out they'd blown my college fund on a condo flip that tanked, lying about it for years. I worked double shifts at a diner, earned a scholarship to the University of Miami, and took out loans to become a lawyer. Their emergencies never stopped. Car repairs, medical bills, vague debts, always with tearful promises to repay. They never did. I moved to Boston at 26, landing a job at a top-tier law firm handling $10 million 0 cents mergers like the one I was prepping now. I built a $50,000 0 cents emergency fund, bought a condo, and kept my parents at arm's length. Until this. I looked at Mom, her eyes darting nervously. "You knew about this lie?" I asked. She nodded, almost imperceptibly, her face crumpling. "We didn't think you'd come otherwise," she whispered. Dad chimed in, his real estate bravado faltering. "It's family, Evelyn. We stick together." Family. The word tasted like ash. They'd counted on my loyalty, my lifelong habit of saving them. But this was different. This was a betrayal so calculated it rewrote everything I thought I knew about them. I retreated to the guest room, my hands shaking as I dialed Catherine. "Let me get this straight," she said, her voice sharp. "Your mom wasn't in an accident. They lied to make you fix your brother's Ponzi scheme?" I nodded, though she couldn't see. "Evelyn, the client's freaking out. You've got 48 hours to get back here, or we're handing the merger to Ryan. Ryan, my rival, who'd been gunning for my partnership. Losing this deal could tank my career." I hung up, staring at the coral-colored walls. If I left, I'd be abandoning Liam's kids, Zoe 8 and Noah 10, who were staying with a neighbor unaware of the chaos. If I stayed, I'd be rewarding their betrayal and sacrificing everything I'd built. I was trapped. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Zoe stood in the doorway, clutching a stuffed dolphin. "Aunt Evelyn, is Grandma okay?" Her voice was small, her eyes wide with worry. I pulled her into a hug, my anger softening for her. "She's fine, sweetie, just a misunderstanding." She nodded, unconvinced, and I promised to explain later. Noah peeked in, his expression guarded. "Are you leaving us too?" he asked. My heart broke. They didn't know about the lie, but they felt the tension. I tucked them in at the neighbors, my resolve hardening. I wasn't their pawn anymore. Dinner was a farce. Mom ordered Cuban takeout, the kids chattering about the yacht trip, oblivious to the storm brewing. Liam handed me a Post-it with Zoe's allergy meds and Noah's bedtime. Barely a sentence. "They're good kids," he said, waving off my questions about emergency contacts or funds. "You've got that big lawyer salary, right? You'll cover groceries." Dad nodded, as if this was reasonable. Mom avoided my gaze, fussing with the arroz con pollo. I bit my tongue, my smile a mask. They were leaving at dawn, expecting me to play the dutiful sister while they sailed off. but something inside me snapped. This wasn't just a lie. It was a heist. That night I couldn't sleep, my mind racing. At 2 a.m. I crept into Liam's room, finding his laptop under a pile of resort brochures. His password, still Miami King 99, was a joke. What I found wasn't. His Ponzi scheme wasn't some amateur hustle. It was tied to a Miami crime syndicate laundering millions through fake investments. Emails showed threats from enforcers, one mentioning a visit to our house. Worse, I found documents with my signature forged linking me to the scheme. Liam had set me up to take the fall. My heart pounded as I copied the files to a flash drive. This wasn't about babysitting. My life was on the line. At 3:30 IEM, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Back off, Evelyn," a low voice growled. "You don't want to end up like your mom was supposed to." Click. My hands shook as I checked the house's smart security system, cameras, locks, alarms, all active, for now. But the threat lingered, a shadow in the humid Miami night. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. Morning came, and the family was a whirlwind of departure. Dad loaded the luggage into a rented SUV, Mom fussed over Liam's sunscreen, and Liam barely hugged the kids, too busy posting yacht selfies. "Cell service might be spotty at sea," Dad said, tossing me a burner phone number. "Don't call unless it's an emergency." The irony burned. They left, tires screeching, leaving me with 2 kids, a syndicate threat, and a ticking clock on my career. Noah threw a fit, demanding his dad. Zoe hid in her room, clutching her dolphin. I was drowning, and it was only day 1. I got the kids to school late, thanks to Liam's lack of instructions about drop-off. Back at the house, I set up a makeshift office, trying to salvage the merger presentation. My phone rang. Catherine. "The client's losing patience, Evelyn. They're talking about going to Pierce & Associates if we don't deliver. Get back here." Pierce was our biggest rival. I promised to fix it, but as I hung up, a black SUV idled across the street. 2 men in dark sunglasses watched the house, hands in their pockets. My pulse spiked. Syndicate? I locked the doors, my fingers hovering over 911. The SUV drove off, but the message was clear. I was being watched. School pickup was chaos. I parked in the wrong lot, earning glares from other parents. Noah had lost his backpack. Zoe cried over a spilled juice box, and my phone buzzed with another text. "Stop digging or the kids get hurt." I gripped the steering wheel, scanning the lot for that SUV. Back home, the fridge was bare except for leftover takeout and a single orange. Grocery shopping with 2 kids was a disaster. Noah knocked over a cereal display. Zoe begged for cookies, and I felt eyes on me the whole time. At the checkout, a man in a baseball cap lingered too close, his hand brushing his jacket where a bulge suggested a weapon. I hurried the kids out, my heart in my throat. That night, as I made pasta, the house's smart lights flickered, the security system beeped, then went offline. I grabbed a kitchen knife, checking every room. Nothing. But when I logged into the system, I found it had been hacked. Someone had looped the camera feed. I reset it, my hands shaking. The kids were oblivious, arguing over Minecraft. I couldn't tell them their dad's scheme had put us all in danger. After bedtime, I called Olivia, my friend and a private investigator. "This is bad, Evelyn," she said after I explained. "You're dealing with organized crime. Get the kids somewhere safe and call my FBI contact, Agent Torres." She gave me his number. I hung up, a plan forming. I was fighting for my career. I was fighting for our lives. The next morning, I sat Zoe and Noah down. "I love you both," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But I have to go back to Boston for work. You're going to stay with Great Aunt Clara for a few days." Noah's eyes narrowed. "Is this because Dad's in trouble?" Kid was too perceptive. "It's about grown-up stuff," I said, dodging. "Clara's got a beach house with a pool. You'll love it." Zoe hugged me, whispering, "Don't leave us." I promised daily calls, my heart breaking. I packed their bags, wrote a letter to my family, calm, factual, listing their lies and my $5,000 0 cents loss, and left it on the counter. I documented the house, the hacked system, the forged documents. This wasn't revenge, it was survival. Clara's beach house was an hour north, a gated compound with security cameras and a fierce matriarch. She greeted us with a hug, her silver hair gleaming in the sun. "Your parents are fools," she said, shooing the kids to the pool. Clara had cut ties with them years ago for enabling Liam. She'd raised 3 kids, all successful, and her no-nonsense vibe calmed Zoe and Noah. "I've got this," she told me, handing me an iced tea. "Go save your job and your life." I gave her a folder with the kids' schedules, my letter, and the flash drive. "If anything happens to me, give this to Agent Torres." She nodded, her eyes sharp. "You're stronger than they know, Evelyn." Driving back to Miami, I felt a strange clarity. For the first time, I was choosing myself. At the airport, I booked a flight to Boston, my mind on the merger. Using in-flight Wi-Fi, I rebuilt parts of the presentation, emailing instructions to my team. But as I boarded, my phone buzzed with another unknown number. "You can't hide, Evelyn. We know where you're going." My blood ran cold. The syndicate was one step ahead, and I was walking into a trap. The Miami airport was a claustrophobic maze of hurried travelers and flickering screens. But I felt the weight of unseen eyes boring into me. My boarding pass to Boston was a lifeline, but the text from an unknown number still burned in my mind. "You can't hide, Evelyn. We know where you're going." I'm Evelyn Harper, 33, a corporate lawyer who just uncovered my family's betrayal, a lie about my mom's accident to lure me to Miami, where they'd stolen $50,000 0 cents from my recovery fund to fund a Caribbean yacht getaway while I lay paralyzed after spinal surgery. Worse, they'd entangled me in my brother Liam's Ponzi scheme, tied to a Miami crime syndicate that was now hunting me. I'd left my niece and nephew, Zoe and Noah, safe with great-aunt Clara, but the syndicate's threats followed me like a shadow. As I stepped toward the gate, a man in a gray hoodie brushed past, his whisper chilling. "Keep quiet, or the kids pay." My heart stopped. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about survival. I scanned the terminal, my pulse hammering. The man in the hoodie melted into the crowd, but his threat lingered, a blade against my throat. I'd already survived an ambush at my condo, a car chase on a Boston highway, and now this. My parents, Victor and Diane, had forged my signature on Ponzi scheme documents, framing me for their crimes. My father's retirement was a sham. He was neck-deep in the syndicate, and my mother was his willing accomplice. I gripped my carry-on, forcing myself to breathe. I had to get back to Boston, save the $10 million 0 cents merger deal, and clear my name before the syndicate silenced me, or worse, hurt Zoe and Noah. The flight was a pressure cooker. I sat in a cramped aisle seat, my tablet open, frantically rebuilding the merger presentation I'd lost when my laptop was hacked. Not by accident, but by syndicate operatives erasing evidence of Liam's scheme. My career hung by a thread. My boss, Catherine, had given me 48 hours to return or lose the deal to Ryan, my rival. My mind churned with images of Zoe's tearful hug and Noah's accusing stare. "Are you leaving us too?" They were protecting them, but the guilt gnawed at me. Halfway through the flight, an email pinged from an anonymous account. "Check your firm's server. You're not as untouchable as you think." My stomach dropped. I logged into our secure server, and my worst fears materialized. The Ponzi scheme had breached our client's database, exposing sensitive merger details, contracts, financials, trade secrets. If this leaked, we'd lose the client, and I'd lose my law license. I patched the breach from 30,000 feet, my fingers shaking. But the damage was done. Catherine was already fielding angry calls, and the FBI was circling, suspecting my involvement. Landing in Boston, I was a ghost of myself, exhausted, battered, and running on adrenaline. Rain lashed the tarmac, mirroring the storm inside me. Olivia, my private investigator friend, met me at baggage claim, her face grim. "You look like you've been through a war," she said, pulling me into a hug. In her car, I spilled everything. The lie about Mom, Liam's syndicate ties, the forged documents, the threats. Olivia's jaw tightened. "This isn't just family drama, Evelyn. You're in deep with organized crime. You need to go to the feds now." I nodded, but my thoughts were on Clara's beach house. Zoe and Noah were safe, but for how long? The syndicate knew their location. I called Clara, my voice steady despite the panic. "Kids are fine," she said, her tone sharp. "They're swimming in the pool. My security's locked down, and I've got my Glock ready. Focus on you." I hung up, grateful but uneasy. Clara was a fortress, but the syndicate was relentless. Back at my Back Bay condo, I dove into damage control. The client data breach was catastrophic. Hackers had siphoned off enough to hold the merger hostage. I spent hours reinforcing firewalls, emailing Catherine updates to keep her from pulling the plug. At 1 a.m., my phone rang. It was Agent Torres, the FBI contact Olivia had given me. "Your anonymous tip checks out," he said, his voice low. "The flash drive you sent has solid evidence, money laundering, syndicate connections. But your name's on those documents, Evelyn. The FBI thinks you're a co-conspirator." My heart sank. "I was framed," I said, explaining the forgeries. Torres believed me, but the FBI wasn't so trusting. "Stay low," he warned. "These guys play dirty." Sleep was impossible. At 3 a.m., my condo's smart thermostat spiked to 95 degrees, the vents hissing with a faint chemical smell. I checked the system, hucked again. The cameras showed a figure tampering with the building's gas line. I grabbed my pepper spray, heart pounding, and slipped out the fire escape, rain soaking my clothes. Hiding in an alley, I watched a black SUV cruise past. The same one from the highway chase. My phone buzzed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I silenced it, my breath shallow. The syndicate was closing in, and I was one mistake away from disaster. Back in the hospital post-surgery, I'd nearly died when my IV drip was tampered with, delivering a near-lethal dose of sedatives. A nurse caught it just in time, her face pale as she ripped the line out. "This wasn't an accident," she whispered, showing me the tampered bag. "The sabotage was traced to a fake delivery labeled from a family friend, a syndicate operative covering Liam's tracks." I'd been unconscious, helpless, while they played with my life. The memory fueled my rage, pushing me to keep fighting. I video-called Clara to check on the kids. Noah's face appeared, tear-streaked. "You're abandoning us because you hate Dad," he yelled. Zoe sobbed in the background, clutching her dolphin. My heart shattered. They'd overheard Clara mentioning the syndicate threats. I tried to explain, but Noah cut me off, his voice bitter. "You're just like them, leaving us." He hung up, leaving me staring at a blank screen. Guilt crushed me. I was protecting them, but to them I was another adult walking away. I had to fix this, but how, when every move put them in more danger? Picking up pain meds in Boston, I felt a prickle on my neck. A man in a leather jacket followed me from the pharmacy, his steps deliberate. In an alley, he cornered me, flashing a gun. "Stop digging into the scheme, or you're done," he growled, his accent thick. My heart jackhammered. I threw my purse, the contents scattering, and bolted as he lunged. A passerby's shout gave me a second to duck into a crowded cafe, calling Olivia from the bathroom. "They're escalating," she said. "You need to move." My parents escalated their betrayal, posting on social media that I'd stolen their retirement savings to fund my lavish lifestyle. The lies spread like wildfire, with cousins and aunts unfriending me on Facebook, their comments vicious. Ungrateful daughter, mental breakdown after surgery. I was isolated, my reputation crumbling. Even colleagues whispered, eyeing me with suspicion. The syndicate was using my family to destroy me from the inside, and it was working. Olivia arranged a safe house in Cambridge, a nondescript townhouse with reinforced locks. I thought I was safe, until 2 a.m. when smoke choked the air. The garage was ablaze, flames licking the walls. I crawled out a second-floor window, coughing, my surgical scars screaming with every move. Firefighters arrived, later finding traces of syndicate accelerants. They weren't just threatening, they were trying to kill me. The Ponzi scheme's hack into my firm's servers exposed critical merger data, client financials, proprietary tech specs. Catherine called, her voice ice cold. "Fix this breach by tomorrow, Evelyn, or you're out. Ryan's ready to step in." I worked through the night, remotely patching the system while immobilized, my pain meds wearing off. Every keystroke felt like a race against time. With my career and license on the line, the syndicate had planned this, knowing I'd be too weak to fight back. Olivia arranged a meeting with a supposed whistleblower who claimed to have syndicate intel. It was set on a Boston skyscraper's rooftop. "Neutral ground," he said. But when I arrived, the door locked behind me. 3 men emerged, one wielding a knife, another a silenced pistol. "Decrypt the files, or you're going over the edge," the leader snarled. The files, stolen from Liam's laptop, held the syndicate's laundering records. I stalled, pretending to fumble with my phone, and triggered the building's fire alarm. Sprinklers erupted, chaos giving me a split second to sprint for the stairwell. A bullet grazed my arm, blood soaking my sleeve. I barricaded myself in a janitor's closet, calling Torres. "Get to the Hancock Tower," I whispered. "Now." Willem called from the yacht, his voice slurred with rum. "You're ruining everything, Evelyn. I told the syndicate you'd cooperate, but you're making me look bad." I froze. He'd been feeding them my movements, selling me out to save himself. "You framed me?" I asked, my voice shaking. He laughed, bitter. "You always thought you were better than us. Fix this, or I'll make sure the FBI buries you." He hung up, leaving me reeling. My own brother was working with killers, tightening the noose around my neck. Torres arranged a dead drop to hand off the flash drive to an FBI agent in a Boston subway station. I arrived at Park Street, the platform crowded with commuters. As I slipped the drive into a designated locker, a hand grabbed my wrist. 2 syndicate enforcers dragged me toward an empty train car, one pressing a knife to my side. "Give us the real drive," he hissed. I'd handed off a decoy, praying it would buy time. I kicked his shin, breaking free, and sprinted through the crowd as they fired, a bullet shattering a nearby tile. I dove onto a departing train, the doors closing just in time, my heart pounding as I clutched the real drive. Catherine called as I hid in a subway tunnel, her voice furious. "The client's pulling the merger, Evelyn. They know about the breach. Deliver a flawless presentation tomorrow, or we're done." I explained the syndicate, the threats, but she cut me off. "I don't care about your family mess. Fix it, or Ryan's partner." I leaned against the cold tunnel wall, the enforcer's footsteps echoing nearby. My career, my reputation, everything I'd built was slipping away, and I was trapped. Back at my office, a deepfake video surfaced, showing me confessing to orchestrating the Ponzi scheme. It was chillingly real, my voice, my gestures, my face. The client had seen it, and Catherine was apoplectic. "If this is true, Evelyn, you're fired and facing charges." It wasn't true, but the syndicate's tech was flawless. I traced the video to a dark web server, but as I dug, my screen froze, a skull icon flashing. "Stop, or Zoe and Noah are next." My hands shook. They were playing psychological warfare, and I was losing ground. My parents called from the yacht, their voices a mix of guilt and rage. "You're destroying our family," Dad barked. "Come back and fix Liam's mess or you're cut off. We'll tell everyone you're unstable." Mom chimed in, her tone manipulative. "Evelyn, we're sorry, but Liam needs you. Don't be selfish." The word cut deep, but it crystallized everything. They'd never respected my life, my sacrifices. I hung up, my resolve hardening. I wasn't their fixer anymore. Torres set up a sting operation at Miami's docks to catch a syndicate courier. I insisted on going, needing to see the evidence myself. In the shadows of shipping containers, I spotted the courier, but it was a trap. 4 men surrounded me, one swinging a crowbar. "You're too curious," he sneered, aiming for my head. I ducked, rolling behind a crate as gunfire erupted. Torres's team intervened, bullets flying, and I crawled through the chaos, scraping my hands raw. I escaped, but the courier vanished, and the syndicate knew I was working with the feds. Back in Boston, Ryan, my rival, leaked to the client that I was under FBI scrutiny, framing it as my incompetence. The client demanded a meeting, grilling me in front of the firm's partners. "Is your family drama compromising our deal?" they asked. I stood my ground, presenting a fortified merger plan, but Ryan smirked, planting doubts. My partnership hung by a thread, and the syndicate's deepfake was still circulating, threatening to ruin me. At Logan Airport, I met Torres's FBI contact to hand off the decrypted files. As I waited at a crowded gate, a woman slipped a note into my pocket. "Gate 22, come alone or Clara's house burns." My heart stopped. At Gate 22, a man in a suit flashed an FBI badge, but his eyes were cold, his hand hovering near a holster. "You're a loose end," he said, pulling me toward a service corridor. I bolted, weaving through passengers, his shouts fading as security tackled him. Torres later confirmed. A syndicate mole posing as an agent. I'd escaped a setup, but barely. Holed up in Olivia's apartment, I was a wreck, battered, betrayed, and running on fumes. She poured me a bourbon, her voice firm. "You're not alone, Evelyn. We'll end this." I called Clara, who showed me Zoe and Noah on video, laughing as they built a sandcastle. "They're safe," she said, "but you need to finish this." I nodded, a plan forming. Using my legal and tech skills, I traced the syndicate servers to a hidden data center in Tampa. I sent Torres the coordinates and the decrypted files, proof of millions laundered through Liam's scheme. The FBI raided the operation, arresting key players and seizing servers. My name was cleared, but the syndicate wasn't done. They'd lost millions, and I was their target. Back at the office, I worked through the night, rebuilding the merger presentation. Catherine watched, skeptical but impressed. "You're a fighter, Evelyn, but don't blow this." The client meeting was brutal. Ryan's sabotage had sown doubt, but I delivered a flawless pitch, showcasing a reinforced deal structure that saved the $10 million 0 cents contract. Catherine pulled me aside after. "You're partner material. Don't let your family drag you down again." I smiled, exhausted but triumphant. I'd saved my career, but the war wasn't over. 3 days later, Liam called from the yacht, his voice panicked. "You sent the FBI after my investors? My kids are with Clara because of you." I stayed calm, my voice steel. "No, Liam. You put them in danger by framing me for your syndicate scam. They're safe because I made sure of it." Dad grabbed the phone, his voice booming. "You're out of line, Evelyn. You don't betray family." I laughed, bitter. "You lied about Mom's accident. You stole $50,000 0 cents. You framed me for fraud. That's not family. That's a con." Mom's voice came next, soft but manipulative. "We're sorry you felt misled, honey, but Liam needed this break." I cut her off. "You don't get to guilt me anymore. The kids are safe, and I'm done being your pawn." I hung up, blocking their numbers. The silence was deafening, but it felt like freedom. A week later, The FBI's raid made national news. The syndicate's Miami operation was dismantled, and Liam, Mom, and Dad were arrested for fraud and identity theft. The feds recovered $30,000, 0 cents of my funds, but the emotional cost was incalculable. Liam's kids, Zoe and Noah, thrived with Clara, who enrolled them in school and art classes. Liam entered a plea deal, starting rehab to avoid jail. My parents began counseling, sending a repayment plan, but I kept my distance, demanding full accountability. Clara organized a family intervention, where aunts and uncles confronted my parents' pattern of exploitation. Liam became an ally, horrified by the lies, and helped rebuild ties with our grandmother, who'd been misled by their stories. I moved to a new, accessible apartment in Boston's South End, a ground-floor haven with a garden patio, free of betrayal's memories. Therapy with Dr. Ellis helped me process the guilt and rebuild trust in myself. I started a support group for financial abuse survivors, growing from 3 to 20 members, each story validating my own. My firm promoted me to partner, and clients praised my resilience, securing my career. My parents' letters grew more accountable. No apologies, but a start. I allowed limited email contact with strict boundaries. No financial talk, no in-person meetings. 6 months later, I flew to Miami to visit Zoe and Noah. They ran to me, Zoe showing off a painting, Noah bragging about his soccer goal. Liam was there, sober and quiet. "I messed up, Evelyn," he said, eyes down. I didn't know how deep I was in. It wasn't enough, but it was something. My parents were subdued, Dad asking about my job for the first time, Mom avoiding her usual guilt trips. Dinner felt different, not healed but honest. I'd set boundaries, and they were holding, however fragile. Back in Boston, my new apartment was a sanctuary, surrounded by chosen family. Olivia, Clara, and even Liam, who was rebuilding his life. My career soared with a $15 million 0 cents client signing on. The encrypted files I'd found on Liam's laptop, still uncracked, sat in a safe, a lingering question mark. What secrets did they hold? More syndicate names, evidence against my family? I didn't know, but I was ready. This wasn't just survival. It was a rebirth. I'd been the fixer, the sacrifice for too long. By standing up to my family and the syndicate, I reclaimed my life. If you've faced betrayal or fought to set boundaries, share your story in the comments. Your courage could inspire someone else. Like and subscribe if this resonated, and stay tuned. My fight's not over, and neither is my story.